Hello and welcome to another Our Dad Stamps video. Continuing with my theme on the islands of the British Commonwealth, today I'm going to talk about the island of Ceylon. Now Ceylon of course was a very important part of the British Empire in the 19th century, and I've always had lots and lots of nice looking stamps from Ceylon, but until I started doing the research for this video I never realised just how much there was and how interesting the stamps are. So today we'll get a chance to look at some. Because of the amount of content there is with Ceylon, I'm only going to cover up till 1972, which is when they became a republic and renamed themselves as Sri Lanka. But there's still plenty to get our teeth into, so let's have a look. The first stamp of Ceylon was printed in 1857, and it was recess printed by Perkins Bacon, one of the top printers of the time in the UK. The stamp itself was a sixpence purple brown, and that covered the cost of sending a half-ounce letter to England. Later that year a further 9 values were printed, which ran from a penny up to 2 shillings. These were made up of 3 different designs, and the interesting fact is, apart from a couple of anomalies, these were the only 3 designs used on stamps until 1872, when the country decimalised. And those 3 designs can present a whole collection in itself, with numerous variations and printings to look out for. The design of the sixpenny stamp was also used for a penny, twopence and 5p stamp, and these were printed in various shades as well as a couple of different colours. A completely different design was used for the 4p, 8p, 9p, 1 and 9p and the 2 shilling design, and once again these were in a whole range of shades and a few different colours. And finally a third design, which was very similar to the first one, was used for the 10p and the shilling stamp. Now, as well as all the different shades and all the different colours that these stamps were produced in, there is also a host of different watermarks, different perforations and even different paper types. So just these 3 designs would keep you occupied for many an hour just trying to find out the differences between these. There's the star watermark, imperf, perforated at to different gauges. There's a Crown CC watermark, again perforated to different gauges. There's a Crown CC watermark on different type of paper. And there's also a few stamps with no watermark as well. So definitely worth looking into and definitely worth spending your time over. In amongst that, you'll find the most valuable stamp from Ceylon. This is the 4p dull rose that was printed in 1857, and a mint version of that stamp is currently catalogued at £70,000. So it's probably unlikely that you're going to get hold of one of those. And if you do come across one of those, make sure you get one with a certificate, because there are lots of forgeries around, as you would expect with high value stamps. In 1872, the country changed to decimal currency, with cents and rupees as the denominations, and a new set of stamps was produced, and these were the more familiar design with Queen Victoria facing left and various designs for the frames of the stamps. The first set ran from 2 cents to 96 cents, and then there was a different design on a larger stamp for the 2 rupee 50. This set is quite difficult to get hold of and also comes in a couple of different perforations. The basic set runs from 2 cents to 96 cents, perf 14, but even that one, to get the 11 stamps, would have a catalogue value of £1,400, so certainly not cheap. And the 2 rupee 50 on its own is catalogues at £850 mint. So you can see these are quite a valuable set and quite rare to get hold of. Used, they're not too bad at all. Used, the complete set is only £160. So if you want the complete set, then I suggest you initially aimed for the used collection. After 1872, there were a lot of stamps that were surcharged with extra values on them. As always with surcharge stamps, this allows for lots of varieties and errors. So there's plenty to look at there. And in fact, most sets between 1882 and 1899 were in fact surcharge sets from previous issues. In 1899, a new set was issued, and this largely used the familiar key type Victoria stamp. This runs from 2 cents up to 75 cents. And then there were 2 high value stamps, one at 1 rupee 50 and one at 2 rupees 25, which were a completely new design and a larger style stamp. This whole set can be bought mint for £110 and used it's £130, most of which, as always, is the 2 high values, so not too difficult to get hold of the lower values for that set. And then in 1902, when King Edward VII came to the throne, there were the familiar key types used for a few sets with his image, and the usual watermarks with Crown CA being replaced by multiple Crown CA. When King George V came to the throne, a really interesting set came out. And in 1912, there was a set of stamps running from 1 cent up to 20 rupees, which are of the familiar key type design with King George V facing left on them. Within this set, there was a host of varying shades, varying watermark errors, inverted watermarks, reverse watermarks, and a whole host of varieties that you can collect. And then from 20 rupees upwards, a larger design ran from 50 rupees up to a whopping 1,000 rupee stamp. The 1,000 rupee and even the 500 rupee stamp are not listed used in the Stanley Gibbons catalogue. I doubt that anybody ever used that for post. My understanding that they were really printed for fiscal use, and as such that's the only way you're going to find used versions. But even so, the 1,000 stamp is currently catalogued at £35,000. Another stamp that we're unlikely ever to get hold of, but it's quite an impressive stamp when you look at the value of 1,000 rupees. The set up to 20 rupees is catalogued at just £100 mint and £150 used, so they are certainly collectible. But as I said, the higher values, the 50 rupee, 100 rupee, 500 rupee and 1,000 rupee are very, very pricey, and you're unlikely to find any of those used. The same set was reprinted in 1921 with multiple script watermark paper, but this time it only ran up to 100 rupee value. However, once again, the 100 rupee is not listed used, so it's unlikely you're going to come across one of those unless it is fiscally used. And once again, the catalogue value of the lower values up to 20 rupees is only £100 mint and £170 used. So again, these are collectible. Strangely, in 1927, they issued a set of just high value stamps. These are of the familiar King George V types and consist of 5 stamps: 1 rupee, 2 rupee, 5 rupee, 10 rupee and 20 rupee. This is a very nice looking set. The catalogue's at £375 mint, £600 used, so quite pricey but not necessarily impossible to get hold of. In 1935, the King George V pictorial design set was issued, and this consists of 11 stamps running from 2 cents to 1 rupee. This set of stamps is quite collectible and does look very nice. It catalogues at £65 mint, £42 used, and most of that value is taken up with the 1 rupee stamp, so certainly up to 50 cents it's quite easy to get hold of. There's a couple of varieties on this, but most of them are the standard size with a multiple script watermark, so a nice set to get hold of. As I said, even if you don't get the 1 rupee value, the others are certainly collectible. Another interesting set is the King George VI pictorials, which were issued in 1938. Again, they run from 2 cents up to 5 rupees this time, and with 14 stamps, the whole set catalogues at £120 mint and only £30 used. So very easy to get hold of. But the interesting thing about this set is that there are a host of varieties and plate errors within the set. So there's many stamps you can get. The 2 cent, for example, has 9 different variations. The values ranging from £1.75 up to £1,600, depending on which variation you've got. So it's definitely worth looking out and looking closely at these stamps. Similarly, the 3 cent has a multitude of variations ranging from different perforations to watermark errors. There are a total of 50 different varieties of this set issued, so definitely something that you can take time over collecting and going for the whole lot if that takes your fancy. Although, as I said, 1 or 2 of them are very expensive. By and large, the rest are reasonably collectible, but you might have to splash out a few hundred on some of the stamps. In 1948, Ceylon gained independence and stopped issuing stamps with the monarch's head on them. But there's still some very nice sets that are worth looking at and worth collecting. The first set was just a couple of designs commemorating the first anniversary of independence in 1949. And then the UPU 75th anniversary set was issued again in 1949. But these were a different design than the Omnibus Commonwealth editions. And then in 1950 they issued their first pictorial set, which is a set of 6 stamps. Very cheap to get hold of. It runs from 4 cents to 1 rupee. Catalogues at £20 mint and just £1 used, so it's easy to get hold of the used values. A much nicer set was issued in 1951, in my opinion a nicer set anyway, which used photogravure method printing. And this runs from 2 cents up to 10 rupees and shows several images of life in Ceylon at the time. There are 12 stamps in the set which have a catalogue value of £110 mint and £35 used. As always, the vast majority of that is taken up with the top value, the 10 rupee stamp, but it's definitely worth having a look at. You also need to be careful because in 1958 the set was reissued but redrawn in a lot of cases, and it takes a close look to tell the difference between the 2 issues. It is quite obvious once you see the 2 together, but unless you've got them to compare, then it's very easy to miss and confuse the 2 sets. One last set that I'm going to mention that's worth looking at was printed in 1964 and runs from 5 cents to 10 rupees with 10 stamps. But what's interesting with this set is the 4 stamps depicting birds of Ceylon. That's the 5 cent, the 15 cent, 60 cent and 75 cent. These are nice stamps on their own, but in February 1966 they were actually issued imperforated on a sheet, and this was the first souvenir sheet issued by Ceylon. The same sheet was reissued on the 15th of September 1967 to commemorate the stamp exhibition in Ceylon, and it has the words overprinted, First National Stamp Exhibition 1967. So watch out for the difference between the 2. In 1972 Ceylon became a republic and renamed itself Sri Lanka. After that time, all stamps carried the name Sri Lanka rather than Ceylon. And there's some very nice ones to look at in amongst them, but I haven't got time to go over the whole of Sri Lanka on this video. Like most countries at that time, they started issuing lots and lots of stamps, so it's very difficult to keep up with them all. However, if you're just interested in Ceylon, then there's certainly a lot to get your teeth into. There's certainly a lot of varieties and a lot of variations, especially with the older stamps. So I would recommend having a good look at them. One thing we haven't talked about yet is Ceylon's Telegraph stamps. And these offer a whole new area of collecting and completely separate from the usual stamp collection. Telegraph stamps were used extensively up until 1910, and the stamp whose value represented the receipt for payment was placed on the telegraph form over a line joining the receipt part at the top from the message below, so it needed to be quite long. And in order not to cut the monarch's head in half, the stamps were designed with two images of the Queen, one at the top half, one in the bottom half. And what happened then was that the telegraph was cut in half. The top bit was given to the sender as a receipt, and the bottom part, once the telegram was dispatched, it was kept for a short while in case there were any queries, and then destroyed. The stamps are listed as mint, which is the whole stamp, or used, which is usually just the top half of the stamp, since the bottom halves were destroyed once the telegram had been processed. There are a few of the bottom half ones that can be got with a cancellation on them, but these are much rarer and obviously of a higher value. There are also a few that were put on the telegram incorrectly and as such remained whole and cancelled. Once again, these are much more valuable and in most cases are not listed in the catalogues. There's a huge range of different telegraph stamps to collect, generally with a fairly plain design with the monarch's image on them, and they range in value from a few cents up to 50 rupees in some cases. So as I said, this is a whole new area of collecting and can be collected separately or as part of a Ceylon collection. I hope you've enjoyed this short video and look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks' time.